I never imagined life would end up here. A single room, 3 potted plants, 1 battered recliner, and a view of a half-dead lawn from a nursing home window. If you had asked me 30 years ago, when life was bustling and laughter still echoed through the halls of my little blue house, I would have said life would end surrounded by family. Warmth. Sunday dinners. Grandchildren racing down the hallway with bare feet and reckless hearts. Not this. Not the sterile silence and the faint smell of disinfectant lingering in the air. My house on Willow Lane, it wasn't much to look at compared to the glossy new builds in town, but it was mine. Bought with the savings from my first teaching job and my late husband's weekend carpentry work. We scrimped and saved every penny, patched leaks ourselves, sanded floors by hand, painted walls on borrowed ladders. We fought under that roof. We loved under that roof. We survived under that roof. And when John passed, it was just me and my son, Aaron. My whole world. He was a bright, spirited boy. Curious, stubborn like his father, but with a tender heart that only a mother could know. I remember tucking him into bed, his tiny hands clutching a worn-out teddy bear. The soft glow of his nightlight casting comforting shadows across the room. Back then, he would whisper, "I'll always take care of you, Mom." Children mean those words when they say them. They mean them with their whole tiny hearts. But time wears promises thin. Aaron grew up. Got a scholarship to a college 2 states away. Met a girl. Married. Had 2 sons of his own. And life, well, it pulls people like tides pulling driftwood. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became rarer. Still, I never doubted his love. Until the day he showed up, papers in hand, and a polished smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mom, we've been thinking. It's not safe for you to live alone anymore. You deserve better care. A community. Friends your age. You'll love it, I promise." I should have heard it then. The rehearsed tone. The impatience tucked between the lines. But a mother's heart, oh, it's foolish sometimes. Willing to believe the best long after reason gives up. I let them pack my things into neat, soulless boxes. I smiled, nodding like a well-trained patient, as they drove me away from the only home I had ever known. For a week, I tried to settle in. Tried to make sense of the endless white corridors and scheduled meal times. Until one afternoon, walking past the communal lounge, I overheard Aaron's voice. He wasn't speaking to me. He was speaking to his wife, unaware I was just around the corner. "Once the house sells, we're clear. The mortgage, the car payments, everything. It's practically ours now. She's already out." I froze. The floor might as well have opened up beneath me. It wasn't about my safety. It wasn't about community or friendship or better care. It was about money. The realization hit me like a fist to the gut. Not love. Not concern. Just convenience. Just greed. That night, I sat by my window, staring at the stars blurred by the glass, remembering Aaron's tiny hands wrapping around mine. The nights I stayed up sewing his Halloween costumes. The mornings spent flipping pancakes shaped like dinosaurs because he refused to eat regular ones. The teenage years where we argued and made up, where I stood by him when nobody else would. How could he forget all that? How did I raise a man who could look at me and see a burden? Grief turned slowly into something else. A hard, simmering resolve. Maybe love had made me blind. But love could also make you brave. The next morning, before breakfast was served, I called a taxi. The driver looked at me sideways when I asked him to take me back to Willow Lane. An old woman in a nursing home robe with a fire in her eyes isn't something you see every day. But he didn't ask questions. He just drove. When I stepped onto that porch, my knees nearly buckled. Not from age. From the memories that hit me like a wave. There was the chipped step John never got around to fixing. There was the faded welcome sign Aaron had painted for me in 3rd grade. The house stood stubbornly, quietly, waiting for me like an old friend who never gave up. I still had a key tucked in my purse, an old habit. I turned it once, twice, and the door creaked open. The house still smelled like lavender sachets and dust motes. The sun still painted long slanted beams across the floor. I ran my fingers across the hallway wall, tracing invisible lines of decades spent living. No. They couldn't have it. Not like this. Not without a fight. I called an old friend, Clara, who ran a real estate agency. Told her everything. She listened without interrupting. At the end, she simply said, "I'll help you, Marjorie." But are you sure? I was more sure of this than anything I'd ever done. Within days, Clara had found a buyer, a young woman, newly divorced, bruised by life but full of hope. She walked through the house with reverence, touching walls like they were sacred. She told me she dreamed of growing old here. I saw myself in her, 30 years ago. Hopeful. Brave. I didn't just sell the house. I passed it on. The closing day came quicker than I expected. I signed the papers with a trembling hand, but it wasn't fear. It was relief. Aaron didn't know. He assumed time would stretch out obediently, letting him take what he wanted at his leisure. He underestimated the woman who had built a life from nothing. I left the house empty except for one thing, a letter. Taped to the kitchen counter, right under the spot where the sunlight hit every morning. Dear Aaron. You once told me you'd always take care of me. I believed you. But sometimes, we need to take care of ourselves. The house has found a new keeper now. I hope you find what you're looking for. I'll be finding myself. Mom. When Aaron finally came to collect his prize, he found only echoes. An empty shell where memories had once lived. A mother who had learned, at last, how to choose herself. Now, I live in a small river cottage 2 towns over. A place where I wake up to the sound of birdsong instead of buzzing fluorescent lights. Where I plant tulips and tomatoes, drink tea from mismatched mugs, and read books until the stars come out. Sometimes, I miss what was. The past tugs at me like a soft, persistent hand. But then I look at the river, always moving forward, always changing, and I smile. Because freedom isn't the absence of grief. Freedom is knowing that grief doesn't get to own you. I forgave Aaron eventually. Not because he asked. Not because he deserved it. But because I deserved peace more than I deserved bitterness. And if he ever comes looking, really looking, maybe I'll invite him in for tea. Maybe not. Some doors, once closed, don't open again. And that's all right. Life doesn't always give you the ending you expect. But sometimes, if you're brave enough, you can write a new one yourself. I turned that last key, not to close a chapter, but to open a new one. For me. Finally, for me.